Hey everybody, if you're in the Zoom, welcome. I know it's a different time, so I hope we still get the good participation. If you're on Facebook, please put comments in the chat. We have Shamir that's going to address those. Tonight, I want to talk about the segment called Snack Now, Feast Later. It's all about the delayed gratification that enables you to accumulate so you can then build wealth. It is important not to spend everything you bring in, and it's even more important not to overspend and go into debt with each passing year. I hope everybody wants to participate. Hey, I see your chat, 𝗲𝗿, nice to see you. Before I get started in making a budget, is there anyone that has a pretty detailed budget that they use already? Personally or professionally, it doesn't matter. If you have some budget making experience.
I do.
I used to.
Used to? Okay. All right. Tell me a little bit about that, please, y'all.
For me, the first step is knowing where you're spending your money. If you can't track every penny, then your budget doesn't mean anything.
Okay. All right. And Shamir, what are your thoughts on budgeting?
For me, it was a little easier when I knew what was coming in every week or bi-weekly. I'm in a different situation now where I don't necessarily know what's going to come in, so I'm trying to refocus some things, and which is why I'm glad I'm here today to learn about that.
Well, I love that. Before I get into what a budget is, I'm going to talk about a concept I learned a long time ago called income smoothing. And there was this wonderful software that I got. And basically, it took the variances of income, created an appropriate, it wasn't an average, but it was like a minimum expected, so that you could take income. It knew, like, okay, if you had a good year, you took all this and put it in savings and short-term savings to withstand a low year, and you would look at how you expected your income to go. So when I first heard about income smoothing, it was a financial planning software. It still enabled you to do a lot of scenarios, what if analysis, but it was very much, instead of focused on what your growth was going to be based on these kind of randomly chosen return, it said, okay, let's look at income growth over the years, and let's make it kind of a normalized, can you get the Shamir? A normalized income stream, adjust it for inflation so you know exactly what your monies will be in each year. Pretty complicated software. I bought it and I ended up bugging the heck out of the developer. And then we had some good conversations. And I remember one day he said to me, he was like, well, what do you do for a living? And I was like, I'm a housewife. And he was like, you're a housewife? And it felt like he was surprised that there was an intelligent, analytical person who wasn't working for a living, making sure the home finances were in order. What I want to say is there should be, in every partnership, someone analyzing and taking care of the money. Just because they aren't working at the moment doesn't mean they shouldn't be eminently capable of understanding exactly the flows of money. And the communication between the partners should also be good. The book that I read a long time ago is called Get Financially Naked. Now, full disclosure, I didn't care for the book all that much, but the mindset it put me in, you have to get really vulnerable about money. A lot of people have a lot of preconceived notions, and a lot of people have really wrong, damaging views of money. So take all that stuff off, get naked so that you can grow together as a partnership and make the right decisions. Now, I want to go to, I have a spreadsheet that I'm not really going to share just yet. I'm just going to work on it, because I would like to get some input about making a budget. So the first bit of, I'm going to get my glasses so I can see the spreadsheet. The first bit of information I would like to ask is, what do most people think is a, for our purposes, typical monthly income? Can someone give me something?
5,000 a month.
5,000 a month? Okay, so that's what I'm going to put in here as a projected income of 5,000 a month. Now, at 5,000 a month, what do most people pay in mortgage or rent?
1,000 to 1,500.
Sorry?
1,000 to 1,500.
Okay, so let's say this is 5,000. Is this going to be one person or a family of, say, 4?
I was thinking one person, but
One person. Okay, so let's do a 1,500 month rent. Anyone know, willing to comment, what is your average rent for 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment where you live? Shamir, do you have an idea?
For 1 bedroom, 1 bath, probably right around 1,000, give or take.
Right around 1,000 in an apartment. David?
1,500.
1,500. Anybody else want to chime in? I can't see my Zoom anymore because I'm on the spreadsheet.
Well, this says 1,700.
1,700. Okay. So we're going to work with the $1,500. All right. Let's say you have a cell phone. How much are people paying for their cell phones, including their taxes?
A family of 4 or individual?
No, we're doing the individual budget.
$100.
What? Okay.
130 is what it would have said.
What, for one phone?
I would say 90.
Okay, so let's say $90, right? And for your 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, that's what we're going with here, how much are you paying in electricity?
$50, $60.
$50, okay.
Yeah.
And let's say you have a gas furnace and cooktop. How much do you think you're paying there?
20, 10, 20.
Let's do 15, all right. And then water and sewer? For me, it's water, sewer, and trash collection. So what do y'all think that might be in this 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment?
Maybe 10, 15.
I think that's good. I'm going to put 12. And then I'm going to say, what is it for internet and cable? If you don't have cable, then we will just not include that in the number. But let's say internet cable. I know I pay $65 for internet in my office and I have no cable, but most people who live alone, do they have both? I don't know.
I'd say about 80.
80? Okay.
I'm good with
And
that.
then we go with that. I'm going to assume that waste removal is included with gas. Okay, maintenance or repairs. This is on your property. If you're renting, maintenance and repairs are very low, but you might have to do something. So I'll do $50 a month. Supplies for your house, cleaning supplies, light bulbs, anything like that, I'll average, say that at about 10. So that is a total of $1,700 a month, $1,772 in fact, of the $5,000. Now, I'm going to share my screen now. So anyway, what I'm looking at, since I can't share this, is that if you take 1,700 divided by 5,000, that's about 34% just has to do with your housing of your monthly income. Now keep in mind, this is gross salary and we haven't taken out taxes, haven't eaten, we haven't had any fun, we've just paid for housing. So the next step, let me know when you can get that shared, we'll just keep talking. let's say you have a car and you pay on that car. What is a typical car payment? Standard car, nothing fancy. What is a typical car payment?
$300-400.
Okay, let's say $400 a month. And if you have a car, you also have insurance. What is your insurance a month?
Depends on how nice your car is. $100 or $250. I don't know.
Oh my God, really? Let's go with, can we go a little lower? I was thinking about $120 for insurance. And then what did everyone spend last month in gas?
$200.
Dang, okay, $200. And let's say your car needs maintenance over the year. Let's allocate at least $100 toward maintenance, right? So that's another $820. And while we're on this section, let's say that this person has either a personal loan or a student loan or any credit cards. What's the total indebtedness they might have? I'm going to say 100 a month.
At least 100 a month.
100 a month, okay. And then, do they have insurance? So if they rent, they probably have renter's insurance or contents insurance. That can be as cheap as $25 a month. This covers their
15 to 20.
Okay. 15, all right. Health insurance. Even if you have really good insurance with your company, you're paying co-pays, you're out of pockets. So let's say about $25 a month over the course of a year for health insurance. What about life insurance? How many single people who live in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment tend to have life insurance?
Zero.
So we won't put this in here because usually at that stage of life, they don't tend to have insurance, right? So let me see where we are. We are now at a total amount of your budget allocated as $2775. Oof, a $5,000 budget. We haven't gotten into entertainment. Does anybody know how much they spend a month on movies, CDs, magazines, sporting events, anything that's not food related? Because we'll get to that in another section. How much do you spend?
These days, nothing.
Oh, come on. Magazines? Nothing?
Food?
Books?
No.
Food?
Oh, books. Okay, let's go with books. 40 a month. Oh,
40
Netflix, yeah.
Does anybody?
Up it to 50.
Amazon. Think about how much money you spend on Amazon a month.
Well, Amazon might come under groceries, or it depends on what you're ordering, but just pure entertainment. What do you spend money on? I know that I spend a lot on books.
Yeah, I would say books and
subscriptions like Netflix and Amazon Prime and HBO. Because I don't have the internet, the cable TV, I have the apps. So can we say $50 a month?
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Probably low, but we're going to go with it. Now we're going to talk about food. Single person for the month. How much do they spend at the grocery store? How much do they spend at restaurants? Any idea?
At least 200 a month.
I was going to say between 100 and 200 maybe.
On groceries?
And eating out, you said.
Yeah, eating out too.
Really? I would say more, but we'll go with 200 a month. Okay, David, 200 a month is $50 a week on groceries. Let's just, as a sample budget, what are you buying with $50 a week in groceries?
Okay, you're right. So let's go with 4. I mean, you're right. 50 a week on groceries, easy. And then probably another 50 going out to eat, whether it be lunch or whatever, easy another 50.
Okay, so what are we gonna say per month that is?
400.
400, okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, you have a cocktail every now and again.
Yeah, you might buy some liquor. I don't know, a couple of beers. What's a 6-pack of beer cost these days, guys?
$8, something like that.
$8? Okay. So now we get to taxes. If you're making, I think I looked this up, $60,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month, you're paying about $10,778 a year in taxes. That's if you make 60. So 10,000. Let me go back here to my spreadsheet. Federal taxes, 10,778 divided by 12 is $898 roughly, give or take, per month. God. Thankfully, we here in Texas don't pay state tax. I don't know if you guys pay state tax where you are, but we're skipping it. We also don't pay local tax unless it's sales tax and registration tax on your car and toll. We didn't talk about toll in the car, did we, here in Dallas? But that's okay. And then other taxes, Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare is 1.45%. Social Security is 6.5, guys? I'm not sure.
It's either 6.5 or 6.25. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. So 1.45, let's see, plus 0.0625, I think that's right, times 5,000. That's 385 just other. So that's $1,283 a month in taxes. I'm going to slide up and look at this spreadsheet here. So the projected monthly cost is $46.90. And let's see, what other things do we need to put down? If you've got pets, you've got food. If you've got kids, maybe not in the 1-bedroom apartment. Personal care, we haven't even attended to. Hair and nails. David, how much do you spend on your nails? Anyway, clothing, dry cleaning, health club, any dues. Let's just give it one number for all of those costs per month for the average person living in the 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment.
$100, but I mean, you also got to take out of that the retirement. I mean, you know, if you're on a job,
we haven't put retirement in here. We haven't even gotten the savings yet.
Okay.
This is why I want us to go through this process. Okay, because the next section is, well, there's legal, but I'm going to skip that because most people aren't paying attorneys or anything. Retirement accounts, investment accounts, college accounts for their kids, probably not. But let's say they're putting money in their retirement account, maybe an IRA or something. What's the maximum you can put in an IRA? I think it's $6,000 a year, right? If you put $6,000 a year, you decrease the amount of taxes. Your taxable income goes from the $60,000 to the $54,000. So I will look at that difference. But as of right now, let's hope that they're putting the $6,000 a year, which is $500 a month, right? And let's go see what $54,000 a year looks like in taxes. They're saying that's 90/60. So I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet and make the taxes. Where are the taxes? Now, at $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year, and let's talk about that $60,000 a year. For the average person living in the 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, that's a pretty good salary for a young person, right? It's not, you know, you're not making the baller 6 figures that people talk about, but if we're being typical and you're making 60 grand a year, at this budget, you have overspent your monthly budget by $147. And what I'm going to do is take some pictures of this and share it in the Facebook afterwards. I'm sorry, I can't share it on the Zoom call. That's really hurts my heart. But you've overspent by $100 and something a month, so you're steadily going into debt. What happens if there's an emergency? Your car gets hit in an accident. You've got insurance, but you've got a deductible. Deductible, most people who have these insurance policies, let's say they've got a deductible of at least $500. Where do you have the $500? Or if a tire goes out, or if you're sick and can't work a day and you don't get a salaried job, so if you're off, you don't get paid. There is no cushion.
Called credit cards.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's how most people pay for their emergency situations. But what is the situation with credit cards? What is the damaging thing about credit cards?
Interest rates, annual fees, all that good stuff.
The fact that you don't pay them off.
Most people don't pay them off. And has anybody ever looked at the fine print on your credit card agreements? Even if you have, say, I don't know, 12.9% first year, they're like so low and everything. There's like 59 paragraphs of small print past that. So let's say you've got money on your credit cards, because remember, you're going $147 in the debt each month just from that budget. And let's say you've got, I don't know, $1,500 on your credit card, $2,000, $5,000, whatever. People, the typical credit card debt in this country is pretty staggering. Then you have an emergency fund, or for some reason you can't make a payment, your payment is late. You go into a default rate. That default rate can be as high as 23%. And what's really cool is if you go into a default rate on one credit card, if you have that spread across several credit cards, somehow you're looking, oh my gosh, I'm paying this high interest on all of my cards. How does that help you get out of trouble if you're living by the hairs of your chinny chin chin, and then you have some kind of upset in your life, and then you can't pay, and now the cost of the debt that you have doubles? That is kind of crazy. Now, when my husband and I think when we first got married, I think he was making probably about $5,000 a year. The fortunate thing was at that time we didn't have to pay rent because it was covered. We were living overseas and the rent was covered. And we save. But if you're not in that fortunate position and you're making $5,000 a month, what are some options to make sure you do three things? One is save money so that you can invest. Two, accumulate money so you have an emergency fund, the rainy day fund, which is what I call it. And three, give yourself some peace of mind in case you need to make a change. What is building your portfolio? Saving is one thing. This is what I think about saving. You save. My mother used to think you saved at least 30% of your income. A lot of what I use and think in Pitranomics comes from my mother and her views about money. And so she said, you need to save at least 30% of your income. And the first thing you fund is your emergency money. And once you have your emergency money, then you pay off any debt that you have. I'm not talking about house debt, because at the time, house debt was considered good debt, but we'll talk about that later. And then you start saving for investing, for growing your net worth. But even that's low. My mother didn't tell me, oh, if you're making 30%, that's good. She would say things like, you're only doing 30%? And I was like, well, Mom, that's what you told me. And she's like, well, dear, I didn't expect you to sit at the low bar. You got to go higher. That was before, they talked about going higher. So my mother helped me. I saved 50% of my salary my first few years of working. I lived extremely frugally. I had friends that made less than what I made, drove better cars, had better houses, apartments, or whatever, spent more money on clothes and spent more money on going out. I had a friend tell me that her words were, excruciatingly cheap. I was offended back then because I didn't think I was cheap. I thought I was smart. I was doing what I'd been taught to do. But I am very grateful for the lessons that I learned. And this is one of the reasons I do Pitranomics, because this stuff isn't taught in schools. When I was in junior high, I took a home ec class that talked about budgeting and checkbook balancing and savings, and wasn't talking about investing so much, just savings for retirement, making sure you have your pension, counting on your Social Security, all that stuff. We don't count on that no more. But no one is teaching our kids that. They're not. Does anybody know where they're teaching how to even balance a checkbook, how to make a budget, how to decide what rate of return you need to accomplish the goals? I mean, budgeting is simple. Right now, I think it's simple, but if you've never done it, it can seem quite daunting, which is why we're going to talk about it here. That budget we just went through on $5,000 a month, you are overspending. My mother had a guideline. She said, you should take your yearly salary, and she believed in home ownership, and your home should be 2.5 times your yearly salary. So if you made $60,000 a year, then you lived in a $150,000 house. And if you made $100,000 a year, you lived in a $250,000 house. That's max. Now, I know quite a few people that make $100,000 a year that do not live in a $250,000 house. In fact, when I was, I'd say about 26, I was making about $50,000 a year. My house cost $24,000. Now, my friend who made more, she bought, no, this is back in the 80s, guys, she bought a $73,000 house. And I remember thinking, oh my God. And she bought a new car. And she bought a house full of furniture. And I was just like, how is she doing all that? Maybe I should be able to spend a little more. I talked to my mom, and my mom was like, no, dear. You stay your course. So your house is 2.5 times your annual salary. Your car value total, so if you have 2, you divide this by 2 for each car. Your car total should be half your annual salary. So if you make $100,000 a year, your car should be 50 or less. If you make $60,000 a year, your car should be 30 or less. Back then, 3-year auto payments was about the norm. Now, oh my gosh, there's 7 and 8 years for auto payments. Interesting. Because the cars, as a percentage of income, are very expensive. But let's take that $60,000 a year person, and they're buying a $30,000 car. What kind of car is that, guys? Anybody can tell me? What's an example of a car that meets that criteria?
Mid-range. Go ahead.
Just give me a model.
Chevy Malibu or something like that, maybe.
Chevy Malibu. Okay. How much does that car cost?
I don't know.
I don't either. You did a car you didn't even know. But let's say you got a Toyota Corolla. I don't know. How much is a 2021 Toyota Camry? Anybody? I bet it's over 30 grand. I'm guessing. I don't know. Is it? Anybody wants to tell me? So even a basic, reliable car is causing people to exceed these guidelines.
25,000.
So then you go back to 25,000 base model.
I don't know. It just says from 25. I guess that's the cheapest one you're going to get. 25,395.
LE. So you're looking at, if you make $60,000 a year, then you need to make sure you get a bare bones Toyota Corolla or Toyota Camry, because, you know, you add taxes, title, registration, you're getting up close to that 30 grand. So my mother said, no debt beyond a house. Your house is 2.5 times your salary. Your car is half of your yearly salary. That is the way you make sure you don't get into financial trouble. Now, I know people, I lived among people. When I moved into my neighborhood, I live in Starwood. I knew people that were buying $700,000, $800,000, $1,000 homes on $200,000 a year. Now, people think $200,000 a year is a lot of money, and it is, but it doesn't last long if you don't spend it strategically. Now, because my husband and I had accumulated money when we were early married, we moved back to the States. We had to come up with a down payment for a house. We came up with the 20%. We had to buy cars, 2, one for me, one for him, because I had an infant. We had to buy a house full of appliances and furniture because we weren't bringing much back. And that took almost all of our spare cash to do that. We bought a Volvo station wagon, and my husband bought, you know, I can't remember. He bought I think it might have been a Jetta, a Volkswagen Jetta. Both of them were used. We paid cash. We bought our washer, dryer, refrigerator, sofa, because we didn't have one, sofa and love seat, televisions, and all that. We had to pay for that cash. And then we were like, oh my God, we have no money. Okay, build back up the emergency fund. And then my husband decided, he told me one day, my husband does this. He was like, we're gonna live on 30% of our net income. And I think I may have looked at him like, what you talking about, Willis? I don't think we can make that work. Well, we made it work. We piled some money away, and we piled some money away, and we paid down our house. And then we decided to move to the Starwood neighborhood. Now, this isn't bragging. This is me telling you that if you follow these guidelines, you can do it too. Our house that we moved in Starwood, where people were buying these expensive houses on $200,000 or whatever, and going in with very low down payment, we paid off our house inside of 3 years. Now, I remember our realtor that sold us the house. We had him over. We were like, we are having a paid off the house ceremony. And he was like, wow, not many people even bother to do that. But it gave my husband peace of mind to know that our house was free and clear. So let me tell you what you have to do. Let's start with making the budget if you follow the guidelines and if you start avoiding debt. So I'm not going to go back to that spreadsheet, but I can't share it anyway. But let's talk about another salary. Let's go up to $80,000 a year. Everybody take your own paper, and we're going to start with what are the taxes on $80,000? Okay, if you make $80,000 a year and you live in Texas because you have no state tax, you will pay $16,708 off the top. So we're just going to take that off the top. So if you have $80,000 and you take that amount off, what do you have left? Hello?
63,292.
63,000. Now, if you take your annual salary of $80,000 and you say, I'm not going to live in a house more than, what is that, 160 plus 40, so $200,000. Now, if you get an FHA loan, I'm just ballparking it here. You have a $200,000 house, chances are your PITI is what? Around $1,250, $1,300? Let's go with it. $1,300 a year times 12. How much is that off what you have left?
$15,600.
Okay, you take that off because you got to have a place to live, right? Now, let's say this was 5 years ago. You're in a $200,000 3-bedroom townhome, okay? And maybe those payments include HOA. We'll do it like that. Now, what's a smart thing to do if you're a single person and you manage to get into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome, 2.5 bath, let's say, ensuite, master bedroom? What is something you can do?
Regarding the HOA?
No, you're in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhome, and you want to make sure you accumulate money. What can you do?
Rent it out.
You can get some roommates. You can get some roommates. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I want to live by myself and I want my privacy or whatever. Okay, we're going to look at the difference between renting out 2 of the rooms and your long range goals versus living alone and your long range goals. So if you can get, let's say you live in that 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhome, the other 2 people are sharing the other rooms, it's all bills paid for them. They should pay $400 a room, right? All bills paid. So that's $800 that comes in. Slight increase in utilities, but probably not as much as you would expect. You've already paid for the electrical. They shouldn't be just burning the house up. You've already paid for water. There's some fixed costs in that. You've got trash collection. You've got internet. You've got television. All those things have been paid. Now you've got that extra $800. All right, what can you do with roommates? This is something I did with my roommate in college. We combined our grocery budgets and we cooked together. Now, I know this isn't sexy. I know this isn't fun. Nobody really, this doesn't sound like the kind of fun things that make your life great. But I had roommates when I was in college. I had roommates when I was in grad school. It saves some money. You pick your roommate, you don't try to pick a best friend, you try to pick someone who is compatible, and you share expenses. And I learned, my roommate in grad school, I learned to like fresh tomatoes, which I'd never liked before. I learned to like fresh garlic, which I'd never liked before. She made homemade hummus, which was delicious. You know, so I learned some things. I ate better than I would have eaten by myself because all I knew how to do at the time was fry chicken or fry something. I fried fish, I fried chicken, I fried everything. I even fried vegetables before it was popular. So now, let's go back to what else you can do to save money. So let's say you work 30 minutes away. What's something else you can do to save money? Let's think about, what is gas now? $3.80 a gallon?
You can carpool.
You can carpool.
Or
right?
take the train if you're near one.
Transportation, yes, you can do that. Otherwise, carpool. Is it sexy? Is it fun? Do you have to adapt yourself to someone else's schedule? Yes. Do you save money? A lot. Because here in Texas, if you're driving somewhere and paying toll, that adds up. Okay. And what is one of the single most long-term income killers there is? It's poor health. So take care of yourself. Not just getting in the gym, being fit, doing all this kind of stuff. Take care of yourself mentally. Make sure you save time for keeping your stress low, because high stress is high blood pressure, high cortisol levels, heart attack waiting to happen. And if you're high stressed, you're not performing at work. Okay, and then the last thing that I really want to talk about is entertainment. So remember I talked about self-care and health? I mentioned those friends earlier that I hung around with a lot. We cooked for each other a lot for dinner. We were 4 girls. We cooked a lot for each other. Yes, we went out to dinner every once in a while, but a lot of times we went out to each other's house and somebody cooked and somebody cooked and somebody cooked. My point to all this is, if you use wise strategies when you're young and unencumbered with a partner and children, and then you keep going with that, and I wish I could share this on a spreadsheet, I'm very sorry I can't, then you will see the difference. But that one person that was overspending at $50,000, if they had shared a bedroom, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, they were paying $1,500. What's a 2-bedroom? Maybe $1,750. Well, you split that in half. That's what, is that $875? I think $875 a piece rather than $1,500. So you've put in some money there. That is more than enough in the difference that they were negative each month. And it leaves a little for savings. Now, before I go on to the next part of budgeting, are there any questions? Let's get some interaction about how most Americans go into debt because they don't budget correctly. They use their credit cards to pay for any gap funding. Any comments about that? Any questions? Come on. David, give me something.
No, you're 100% correct. I think that we use our credit cards as a clutch or a crutch. And therefore, wherever I'm short, I just come out of pocket on the card. Instead of understanding.
Payment mentality, right?
100%.
Yeah, I
but
heard.
Then again, most people have not been taught what is good credit.
That's for sure.
I mean, having cards to my daughter, I get her Victoria's Secret bill, I get her Macy's bill, I get all these bills for her, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're 25, 26 years old. Why do you have all these junk credit cards?
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you guys what I did. I graduated from Georgia Tech, got a reasonably good paying job. It wasn't fantastic, but it was okay. I think I was making like $27,000 a year. And had a car that was paid for. It was the car I drove in high school, all through college, perfectly acceptable car, except I moved to South Georgia, and this car did not have air conditioning. Got a little warm driving back and forth to work because it was 30 miles one way. So I decided I needed a new car. The car I had was a Subaru GL. What year was that? 1980? Yeah, 1980 GL. Very nice Subaru. His name was Avalon, by the way, because I named my cars. So I decided I was going to buy this brand new 1989, I think it was, 88, somewhere, Honda Accord SCI, top of the line Honda. It had the leather seats. David, you remember that car, right? It was white, girl. It was like, it had these headlights that did weird things. I was like, oh, that's so cool. It had an amazing sound system. And I think it cost right around $21,000. That was not half my annual salary. That was most of my annual salary. And at the time, when I went to the dealership, they let me drive that car right off the lot. No money down, no financing in place. I just had an agreement that if I couldn't get financing within a certain number of days, I would accept their dealer financing. They were happy to see me. They ran a credit check, of course. I had good credit, and they did an income verification, but they did not have me tied into anything when I drove off the lot. This is something I want to talk about. When you go to buy a house and the lender says, you qualify for this, and everybody's like, rah, I can buy all this, and then they buy their upper limit, Well, that lender isn't looking out for you to save your money and to have an emergency fund and to save for your retirement. That lender is not taking that into account when they approve you for your loan. They're saying, we think you'll stay on this side of bankruptcy and still pay us on this loan. So you can probably qualify for an expensive house, but that does not mean you can afford that house. This is my definition of affording. The money you spend for a good or service or asset is something that if you expend that resource on that asset, it does not disrupt your long-term goals to do so. That is affording. And I'm going to say it again. The resources you expend on that good service or asset does not put the resources in jeopardy you need to accomplish your long-term goals. This is why when I talk about in Pitranomics, you need to establish your goals, you need to have an assessment of your resources, and you need to have a roadmap. Because if buying this good service or asset doesn't enable you to proceed along your path, then you can't afford it. Don't do it, buddy. You can't afford it. How many of us, I'm going to raise my hand right here. How many of us have expended our valuable resources on something that we qualified to get, but couldn't afford? Or put it this way, is there anyone that didn't? Because I just told you about my car. I went out and spent all that money on that car. And here's the kicker. Couldn't get a loan. Then the dealership was like, oh, we got something for you. I think it was like 18%. And so I went to my parents and I was like, okay, I bought a car and I can't get a good loan. I'm not sure what to do. And my dad said, take it back. I was like, and my mom said, you heard your father, take it back. I did not want to take it back. I fell in love with that car. Her name was Imelda. She was a bitch with an attitude. She was an awesome car. My parents did co-sign with me on that car. And I did pay that car off. It was a 5-year note. I did pay it off. And I had that car up until I got married. So I bought this car in 89 and I had it in 97 when I got married, and we kept it probably close to a year. Maybe not quite a year. And then I sold it to my father. So I paid off that car as quickly as I could. But here's the real funny thing about that car. I got into this loan and I was in this job, and I decided about 5 months after I bought that car that I didn't want that job no more. I was leaving. I left that job with no other job in place. Now, I did have some extenuating circumstances. South rural Georgia was not for a mouthy black chick from Colorado. I'll just tell you that. We weren't congruent. So I came back home. Now, mind you, I had 2 cars because I had Avalon and then I had Imelda. I drove Imelda back home, and then my father sent somebody to go pick up Avalon for me. I go home and my parents are like, you can live here. And I'm like, and I move in downstairs and I make this whole place my little office. And then my mother's like, rent. I had to pay my parents rent. I hadn't had to pay them before. I was like, why I got to pay rent now? And she's like, because you're grown now. Grown people pay rent. I had to pay for rent when I had no job. Good thing I had some savings, but if I hadn't gone back home, if I didn't have that available, I would have had to pay for my living somewhere, right? That's what her thought. That's what my mother thought. So she's like, you can pay us. You eating here, taking up our electricity. So I had to pay rent, and I thought, let me go ahead and get that job. So I found the job. Didn't take me that long, actually, and I got a job with the city of Colorado Springs. And I was like, okay, but I didn't move out immediately because the rent my mom and dad were charging me was a whole lot less than what I would have had to pay if I had gone out on my own. So I was like, I'm not stupid. Let me replenish my emergency fund. Now, I was 23, back home, paying rent. Guess what? I thought I was grown. I don't need to tell you when I'm coming in and out. I don't have no curfew because I'm grown. Blah, 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 mouth, mouth, mouth. I know, right? Shocker that I would be mouthy to my parents. And David knows my mother. May she rest in peace. My mom took no stupidity from me. So let's just, long story short, I learned to abide by their wishes. Okay, we'll just call it that. So anyway, I saved the money, and that's when I bought that $24,000 house. Now, the $24,000 house I bought was in a community that some investor had gone in and bought like 80% of them and charged people rent and didn't pay any of the mortgages, and most of the neighborhood went into foreclosure. And that's why I got that one, because it had gone into foreclosure. People had bought them for like $70,000. I bought mine for $24,000. I was like, yay. Now, here's where things get really interesting. This was where I started putting things into place. After getting that loan that my mom and dad co-signed for on the car, and then I got the house that I got a loan, I made sure I spent very little. This is before smartphones. This is before internet. I carried around a little notebook. It looked a lot like this, but about half the size. And I recorded every penny I spent. And some of my friends used to make fun of me, but I knew how much I spent. How many times have you gotten your credit card bill and go, whoa, I didn't know I spent that much? You have to keep track of your spending. A budget is no good if you don't adhere to it. So if we go back to that budget we were talking about here, all right, and we go to fuel at $200, that's now. So I probably fill up my car 5 times a month. And I do drive a lot. But each fill up is about $80. I don't know what you guys are filling up, but I've seen a lot of big cars here in Texas with big tanks. So I'm thinking they're between $60 and $80 too. Anybody paying a whole lot less than that for gas here in Texas? 60 to 80 bucks a fill up. So I fill up 5 times a month about. For mine, that's $400 a month. At 60, it's $300 a month. That's another $100 differential in the negative just for fuel. Now, I want to talk about the groceries. $400 a month, $100 a week for groceries. I literally want to take 3 minutes for you to tell me what that list looks like. Does anybody buy a steak nowadays? Just one steak. Maybe it lasts you 2 days. That steak is $30. Do you buy some milk or cream for your coffee? I know my prices. A pint of cream, $4.25 at Tom Thumb. So if you have one steak a month or a week and cream, you spent damn near $40 of your $100 budget. I don't think people are spending $100 a month on groceries. If they are, I really want to go grocery shopping with them. But let's bring my husband into the case. When I met my husband is from the Czech Republic, from communist Czechoslovakia. It's now the Czech Republic. He's from communist Czechoslovakia. I have never seen anybody hold on to money tighter than my husband. It is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Now, my husband could live probably even now on $60 a week just for himself. He looks at the price of everything. If this carton of milk is 5 cents less than this carton of milk, he is buying that cheaper milk. He makes a meal out. He will buy potatoes by the bushel almost, and he'll cook them all. He does meal prep. He cooks them all. And then a lot of the stuff he eats is raw because he's like, no sense wasting electricity. And he wastes no food. Now, I don't mean to make my husband seem really creepy because he's not. He's just extremely frugal. But if I throw away something that has a use, my husband will be on my butt like, you know what? We could still use that. You know, when I was growing up in communist Czechoslovakia, we didn't waste food because we needed every amount of energy in case we needed to trek to Siberia because the Russians were invading. This is my husband's expression. You know, we had to be able to brave the trek to Siberia. I just said to him, I think about a month ago, I was like, Siberia would be a really hard trek from here. We'd drown first. I get the concept. So he's always thinking, you have to prepare as if this major calamity could befall you. It's hard to live with such a person. I'm not even going to lie. But being married to him, being married to someone who watched every single penny like that, and then I'm thinking in terms of, well, I have these guidelines. My husband didn't think you buy a house up to 2.5 times your salary. Oh, no, no, no. My husband's like, where is the cheapest, absolute cheapest house we can find that fits our defined needs? We're getting that one. And we almost had a row about the furniture. We had an ugly sofa and love seat. We had these ugly white Scandinavian looking chairs in the living room that we brought back from the Czech Republic, which had been thrown out of his mother's office. There were things on the curb. And my husband was like, yeah, perfectly good. Now, keep in mind, I shop at garage sales and I love picking stuff up from the curb, but I get the pretty stuff. I don't get that ugly stuff he gets. But anyway, my husband believed in bare minimum living. When we lived in the Czech Republic, we had a range, cooktop, that was gas with no pilot. I learned how to reuse matches living with that man. I'd use a match to light the first eye. I wouldn't throw that match away. I would save it so I could use the match to relight the first eye so I can relight the second one. My father and his wife came to visit and they were like, does Andre not make enough for you? Are you poor? We were. I mean, we acted like we were. But remember, we had money when we came back from Europe to buy our down payment on the house, 20%, our cars, our furnishings, all that ugly stuff we bought it cash. My husband does not believe in carrying credit card debt to this day. We pay it off every month. That means you got to spend a little enough to pay off every month. You have to know what you're spending. So this is what I invite you to do. There are many software programs now. You don't have to carry around this binder and write everything down. You can have these apps that are attached to your credit card, if you have one, to your bank account, if you use your debit card. And I don't advise you use your debit card, but whatever. If you don't have any control, you use a debit card. If you have control, learn how to use credit wisely. And then you make sure that you spend and account for every cent and you do it for 3 months. And I literally mean every cent. Don't carry any cash because you'll just spend that and not know what you do with it. Take 3 months to figure out every single dime, every single penny you spend on everything. And then make your budget. Decide what you can do without in order to accomplish those goals. Now, back to Pitranomics. You first have to decide what your goals are, and then you have to do this assessment of what resources you have. So you have to know how much money you have. I think I talked, was it last week or a couple of weeks, about balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement? Didn't I talk about those recently? Does this sound right? Okay.
Yes, you did. Yes,
I
you
did.
did. And
Okay.
I want to interject something before you go on, and that is
Okay.
that you have to be honest with yourself.
Mm.
Okay, you know, as an example, I drink beer. Beer is on my budget. Okay, therefore, I know how much money I spend for my beer and my cigarettes. God forbid, but I know what I spend. I'm honest with myself. I'm not delusional. And I don't say, well, you know, I'm not spending that much money. No, I am. And it's in my budget.
It's in my, you know, David, you bring up something that I don't think I touched on before, is everybody has a vice. David likes his beer. I like my chocolate. And I don't like cheap, low quality chocolate. I like the good stuff. And I'm going to eat it. Because if I don't, I'm a bitch. So, gotta have it. Shut up, David. So anyway, I account for my 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀 habit in my budget. David accounts for his beer. If there is something you like, there are people I know that love to get their nails done and their toes done. And I like to do that too, but I do forget to do that. There are people that love to have their hair perfect, and I don't really spend much time on that either.
Shoes.
You can't indulge all your vices, but you should at least have one that makes you happy. And by vice, I mean, this is what I think is a vice. Any habit that, if not taken in moderation, can destroy your life. In moderation, it's a nice little spicy accent to your life. In excess, it can destroy your life. So allow yourself a little taste of one, maybe two, I don't know. But don't indulge in everything. Now back to the budget. Take 3 months. Don't worry about trying to curtail. Not right now. This is like assessing. Write down everything that you spend. Now you guys have these smartphones that can track everything, and look at what you spend each month. I remember one day, I think my son was like really small and my daughter was about 2. And I went into this gas station and I saw this woman bought a pack of cigarettes. And I think that pack of cigarettes cost like $3, $2, something like that. And I don't know why I talked to her, but I was like, how many packs do you smoke a day? And she was like, 2. And I was like, that's $4 a day times 7 days. That's 28. Okay, so if you did that over 5 years, you know how much money you could save if you didn't smoke? And she looked at me, and I think what she said in her mind was something nice, less nice than what she actually said. But in retrospect, maybe that was her vice, her one. That she was like, I'm doing this. Some people have Starbucks coffee as their vice. I don't get out.
Julie, she said thanks.
She said, thanks. But I really did accost somebody like that. I don't know why I did that. Sometimes I do just talk to people randomly, but $28 a week for cigarettes? To me, that doesn't make sense. But I'll probably spend $28 a week on chocolate. Maybe not then, maybe like $8 a week. But I'll probably spend $20 a week on chocolate now. You have to pick your indulgences, and then you have to stick to your plan. So I know somebody, I know a family, I just want to talk about them, I won't say their names, that lived in my neighborhood. I don't know how much they made, but their house was 3 times the size of mine. My house is 4,000 square feet. They lived in a 12,000 square foot house. They had all the nicest cars. They were members of the country club. They partied all the time. They vacationed. And then 2007, 2008 hit. He lost his job. Couldn't get another one. 12,000 square feet of house is expensive, even if you're not paying your mortgage. It's a lot of money. It was very stressful on their lives. Before 2007 hit, She used to be, her children and my children played this how she was in my life. She was very condescending about the way we lived. We were boring. We didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't have time to go hang out at a country club for $40,000 a year and drink, since I don't drink, with people I don't even want to talk to when they're sober, let alone when they're drunk. No, I don't really see the need to do that. But when 2007 and 2008 hit, it hit them hard and that family imploded. And I really want to end with this. Financial stress is one of the #1 destroyers of a sound partnership, sound relationship, sound marriage. #1. So keep your finances in order. This family, they got a divorce. They didn't just get a divorce, they nearly destroyed each other in the process. The kids, that was one of the most painful things I'd ever seen. The kids spent a lot of time at my house. They spent a lot of time in my arms crying. You don't want to see kids crying because they think home is frightening, because their mother and father rage at each other, because they're hearing thoughts of, I'm going to kill you or I'm going to kill myself. That's not what kids should be hearing. So let me go back to this. And I know I'd love to share that budget with you, and I will. Manage your resources, money, energy, and time. Budget all of them, but keep track of how you spend your money. Plan how you want to implement it in the execution of your goals along this roadmap that you've set for yourself. A budget is but one tool, there are others. I talked about the income statement and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement, and we may visit that again. But make sure you're managing your finances so that you can accomplish your financial goals that are intrinsic to your life goals. It will cause you a lot less stress to do that than it will be to live the wild and crazy life. Okay? It enables you in later years to sit back and relax a bit. Now, this is not bragging. This is just an explanation of what very careful planning has been able to do. Both of my children's college funds were fully funded. We didn't have to stress college for them. As long as, you know, the little brats got into one, then they could go. All right? And they did well. They're doing very, very well academically, so I'm very proud of them. Before we funded their college education, we made sure we got a real good dent in our retirement funds, because it doesn't make sense to make sure your kids go to school and you won't eat when you're 62. That doesn't make any sense. So make sure you prioritize those retirement funds for yourself. We always had an emergency fund, because I think it might have been 2008. My husband, he lost his job. It was kind of, he volunteered to lose his job, but it was still pretty scary because the employment market wasn't that great back then. But he still went out there. We still had money to live. We had that 𝗀𝗲 insurance plan. We had money to pay for that. He did get a job, I think, 8 months later, but can you imagine if he left his job with no money, with these 2 small kids and this house that costs a fortune to maintain? Of course, not as much as the 12,000 square foot house. You know, it still costs a lot of money. We were okay. We weren't great, but we were okay. And then we started recouping as soon as he got another job, because we had our plans and we had our budget. Now, back when I was a stay-at-home mom, I would analyze the budget and I would update our balance sheet, our personal balance sheet. I'd look at our cash flows. We'd sit down and have probably about a week-long worth of discussions about our money. I don't know how many partners talk like that about their money. This is what we spent here. We overspent. We got to really watch it this year. We anticipate to have these kinds of medical expenses in the coming year. We are planning to buy a car this year, or maybe next year. Depends. We'll have to see how the money goes. So we had plans. We budgeted for computers. We saved so we could buy a computer. I don't do that anymore, not for my business, because they're so important. I have to have them. We budgeted for cars. We budgeted each month for taxes because we didn't escrow. We decided we pay it ourselves. All of those things that happen on a yearly basis, we accrued them through the year. So we'd have the money at the end of the year. Making your budget really isn't difficult unless you don't know how to do it. But it is crucial for good, sound financial management on the personal level. Everybody knows it is on the professional level, but it is still crucial on the personal level. I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna be quiet a little bit just in case there's somebody that wants to say something or offer something.
Looks like 𝗲𝗿 said she would like to see examples for families for budgeting. That's all.
So let me go back to the spreadsheet, and I will need some, make a copy of this and create a copy, and we will make this a family budget. Okay, so may I get some inputs on the monthly income for this family? Or, you know what, Shamir, if she likes, well, no, I do need to have it said. I was going to try and do it privately, but I can do one of two things. I can go through this budget exercise with you privately, or we can talk about it in the group. Which would you prefer?
A couple different thoughts on the whole thing, though. She wants to do it privately. She just said
privately.
Okay, so we'll do that. We can like take a few minutes right after this and do it privately, but I'm going to do a pretend one. I'm going to say that the income is $10,000 a month. Nope, I'm going to make it 15. Okay, what is 15,000 times 12? So that's 150 times 30, so $180,000 a year. Is that right? If someone makes $180,000 a year and they have a family of 4, how much do you think they're going to spend on their house, y'all? Just give me a guess. What kind of house is the $180,000 a year in Texas going to buy? What do they want to buy? Shamir, give me a number.
You said based on the, I'm sorry, what was the numbers again?
It's $180,000 a year. What do you think $180,000 a year family wants to buy? What kind of house do they want to buy in terms of cost?
400,000.
400,000?
$5,600,000. I mean, realistically.
Well, you're in overpriced Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 500,000.
500,000? Okay, so we'll use 500,000. I'm going to do the payment here. I'm going to use that formula, payment. And let's say our interest rate is 0.04 or 4%. We're going to do a 360 month. And we're going to, let's say we're putting 20% down. So of a $500,000 house, that's $400,000 loan. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that way. What's that? So that principal and interest is $1,900 a month. Let's just estimate taxes and insurance at about $750. I think that's pretty good. So that's 26. We'll make $2,600 a month. Okay. I think it might be a little more because houses that expensive are going to have HOAs. So we're going to make that $2,700 a month. Now, if you were lucky to have gotten a 1% interest rate, great, but we're not going to assume that. Okay. This home, this $500,000 home, what is it? 3,000 square feet? Let's start with the phones. Family of 4, how many phones do you have? Do we have 4?
Depending on the ages, at least 2.
Well, I'm seeing these little kids with phones too, so let's say at least 3.
I guess 4, yeah.
Plus a couple tablets.
I know, right? So
and a couple iWatches. Come on.
I know, because people, they get to 6 figures and they act like they have arrived at the promised land. They can spend all their money. So let's say that their phone, we're just gonna talk about phone, not entertainment parts, but just phones, let's say it's $130 a month. Let's say they got a great plan. 150, I think. Electricity on this 3,000 square foot house in Texas, that's like 2,200 kilowatt hours a month at about 12. So what is that? $320, 400, somewhere in there. Let's say 350. You know, they have AC. Gas in the house, I would say that's going to be about 60. So they've got probably got the gas cooktop. They've got a gas furnace or two. So let's say 50. Water and sewer, at least in Frisco, that's about $65 a month. Anybody want to come up with another number in Frisco for water and sewer? I think that's right. Internet and cable, chances are they have television channels as well. So that's looking at about $120 a month. Waste removal is included in water and sewer. Maintenance and repairs on a 3,000 square foot house. Now, here's the truth. 10% of your house value. So if you have a $400,000 house, $40,000 is 10%. You should pretty much plan on spending 10% of your home's value in maintenance over 3 years. Just plan on it. Something's going to go wrong. Your air conditioner is going to go bad. You're going to need to replace a water heater. You're going to need to get some, I don't know, foundation repair. There's going to be a roof problem in Texas. We have a storm come around often enough. You got to pay the deductible on your insurance. So let's say $40,000 over 3 years. That's $10,000 a year. I'm going to just approximate that. $10,000 a year. That's $800 a month. Is that right? Let me see. $10,000 a year divided by 12, $833. So let's just say $800 a month. You need to save that each month in order to be ready for some catastrophe. But honestly, how much do people actually save for repairs? What do you think is typical? Most people don't save anything and they put it on their credit card.
Exactly.
I don't save a dime, but I'm going to put it in here. Supplies for your house. I'm going to say that's an even 100. Okay, so that's $4,300 a month out of your $15,000 a year. Can somebody look up to me $180,000 a year? What taxes are you paying? Just Google federal taxes on $180,000 a year. Anybody got me on that?
25.5%.
So let's just say a quarter of 180. So what is that? 25 plus 20. Is that right? 45,000 a year? No, that's not right. 25% is a quarter. So 25 and a quarter of, I can't think it. 25 and a quarter of 80, 20.
It says 45,000. Yeah, it says if you make 180,000 a year living in the region of Texas, USA, you will be taxed $45,875.
That's $37.50 a month. Woo! Okay, then you got Medicare and Medicaid. Somebody take $180,000 and here. Let's see. That's 0.0145 for Medicare plus 0.06. I think it's 25 for. That's Social Security times 180. Dang, is that right? Yeah. Good call it. 0.0145. Yeah, so that's $13,000 a year. So let's just say it's $1,000 a month. Make it $1,200. That's $49.50 in taxes on $15,000. So I haven't changed anything else from the single person, but that's $11,520 once you account for house and taxes. All right. Now let's go into the part that really kills families. Let's talk about the food, personal care, and child-related expenses. Now, we aren't spending $400 a month on groceries on a family of 4. So let's say, I would say we're probably spending close to $1,000 a month. Does anybody disagree with me? No, well, I'm putting it in. And then dining out, chances are you're going to 𝗁𝗄𝗎, if 𝗁𝗄𝗎 is even still open. You're going to McDonald's, you're going to Whataburger. They're going to want Andy's custards with extra hot fudge or whatever. So you're probably spending $200 a month at the very minimum on dining out. Mom is tired and does not want to cook, so you get 2 pizzas. Let's say a minimum of $200 a month. And then with children, you've got their medical expenses, you've got their clothing, because they can't keep it, they keep growing. And if your kids are in elementary school, you know they're fundraising. Even if you're not paying money, you're baking goods or buying some of those candy bars that taste like crap. They aren't good chocolate. They've got lunch money. You might have to do childcare. So I'm going to put all of that as another $1,000 a month. And oh my gosh, if they play sports. The first year my daughter played club soccer, starting at age 11, I was completely amazed. $13,000 for dues, uniforms, trips, fundraisers. I was like, I'm halfway through a year of college with just the money we played on soccer. I was not happy. But I am now accounting for children clothing, tuition, school supplies, organization dues, lunch money, childcare, toys, games, and others. I'm giving, including medical, I'm giving it $1,000. I think we paid a lot more for that for our children. It's just very expensive, and you pay it. You don't tell yourself not to pay it, because if you're making $180,000 a year, you feel you can spend that. And then if you go over to personal care, you know, you've got your medical expenses, you're getting your hair and nails done, you've got some expensive clothing, you're paying some dry cleaning bills, you're probably a member of a health club, probably a member of some other clubs. Let's lowball it. Let's say $800 a month for personal care for a family of 4. I'm pretty sure it's more, but we're going to say $800. Medical, hair and nails, clothing, dry cleaning, health club, all that kind of stuff. Family of 4 making $180,000 a year, they have pets, don't they? Has anybody bought a bag of pet food lately at Costco? Like this? What is that thing, 40 bucks? And a good sized Fido goes through one of those, what, every 2 weeks? So let's say for medical, grooming, toys for the dog and whatever, let's lowball it and say you're spending $120 a month. Let's say 100. We'll be fun with that. I'm going to take off savings and investments just yet. If you're making $180,000 a year, are you incurring any legal expenses? Let's just say not for right now. Okay, so we've got pets at $100 a month. We've got personal care at $800, children and all their stuff at $1,000, which I think is low. Taxes at $49.50, food at $1,200 a month. Now, I paid more than that 10 years ago, so I don't know if that's a fair price, and things have gone up. Insurances, I didn't put that in. Home insurance, let's see, that is not covered. The $2,700 here covers the insurance. I'm going to take off home insurance. Health insurance costs, let's just make that, take your kids to the doctor, you pay your copay. Let's say it's $50 a month. Let's say they're pretty healthy, they don't have any real problems. Now let's go over to the entertainment side of the business, right? When you have 2 kids, you're paying quite a bit in entertainment, aren't you? You probably got some DVDs and games, and what's that game called? Madden? No, I don't know the games. Y'all know what they are. Those things that look so realistic. But let's say you're going to sporting events or whatever. Let's say you're spending on entertainment for a family of 4, $200 a month. Does anybody think that's pretty fair? Too low, too high?
I think it's
Hello?
good.
Think it's good? Okay, and now let's go to the car, because if you're a family of 4, you've got what? 2 cars. We said our first payment for the single person was $400 a month. How much are we paying for the second vehicle payment? Want to say 300? Maybe a little cheaper car? And then insurance on those 2 cars is probably close to, well, before we had kids, I think we paid about $2,500 a month because we were older. So let's say $150 a month for insurance. Fuel times 2 cars. Want to say like $300 a month? Anybody? And we'll put fuel and toll because we're here in Texas. $300 a month, a good number? If you disagree, let me know. And then maintenance on 2 cars. I know that my minivan was constantly getting maintained because those kids are just rough on it. But let's say we're setting aside $125 a month. We'll keep it low. Now, do I have any savings? Where's the savings part? I have no savings in this calculation, and the total budget spent is $14,035 a month against a $15,000 a month salary. So they're living pretty decently, but they're not saving any money. They're not putting money away for a college fund. They're not putting any money away for retirement. They've not put any money away for their emergency fund to fund it. And by the way, my mortgage and rent payment, it's assumed they put 20% down. So I don't really know where they got that from. And I will share that. I will actually share this template with whoever wants to have it. But did we lose David? I think we lost David.
Yeah, he said to let you know he had to go, but thanks for the info.
No problem. Okay, so what are some thoughts about that? $180,000 for a household family, that is well above the mean. And they are still not building wealth. That's what I want you guys to take from that. They're still not building wealth.
Yeah, we've been conditioned to live above our means.
This is why I go back to do not think about what you can qualify for. That will not lead you down the right path. Think about what you can afford. What did I say? Affording? If you can't afford it, that means you expend your resources on that service, good, or asset, and it interrupts or derails your long-term plans. You cannot afford it.